experience an obstacle or challenge, I'm going to move past it. I'm going to shatter that glass ceiling and I'm going to keep going.
It hurts to smash a glass ceiling.
Wow, we literally have to be superheroes to walk through this life.
While I might have been the first, I pray that I'm not the last.
Hey everybody, welcome to Taking Her Lead. I'm Joshua Everett Mayer, and this is a particular treat today because I have two friends who I consider sisters, and I said that on the show notes there, and I think some of you thought, you have two sisters? And I do have two sisters, but not these, but I consider them sisters because we have known each other since my freshman year in high school, and that was a million years ago. And I just want to note that we're going to talk about their accomplishments, we're going to talk about their journeys, being sisters, heading back to the East Coast, college, some different things that they've done. And I had a sense from the very beginning that they would be who they are today. Their hearts, their sensitivity to others, their desire for good to occur in the world, in this difficult world, and particularly during these times, they are the people you want in positions of influence. And I saw that coming. I probably couldn't have vocalized that back then, but in retrospect, I think, yeah, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that Amber and Vanessa are now doing what they're doing, and they are who they are. So without further ado, I want to bring on Amber and Vanessa Waldref, and I'll click the buttons here to bring them on. Hello.
Thanks, Joshua. Hello.
How are you two doing?
I'm doing great.
Pretty well. Yes.
Yeah. This is we talked briefly about this. I think I started with you and Amber, you and I, and that was almost 2 years ago because it was at our Christmas party.
Congratulations on this podcast. You've worked really hard to develop this. So nice job.
Yeah. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. So Amber, you are broadcasting from my town, our town, Spokane right now.
Yep.
And Vanessa, you are in?
I am in Richland, Washington, where I'm traveling for work. So you catch a nicely made bed, which was probably not what mine looked like at home. And usually I'm in close proximity. Amber and I are neighbors and loved growing up together and being back in our, same neck of the woods that we grew up in.
Yeah, which is just fabulous. Logan neighborhood. Yeah, not far from where you guys grew up. That's got to be what, about a mile and a half from mom and dad?
Probably.
Yep.
Somewhere in there. It's
not too far.
I know. We went pretty far and then we just came right back to Spokane. What can we say? We love Spokane.
Because it's an awesome city. Don't tell anybody. We don't want more people, but it's an awesome city.
I know, and it was just the best during the pandemic. Oh my goodness. We could, live on Amber's trampoline in her backyard on the fire pit as we, did our best to get through it. But yeah, that was such a treat to be able to be close to family.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. This is a cool town. Well, I want to start off with the question that I've been asking more recently, which I've modified a little bit. And those of you who have watched this know this. For both of you, and Amber, I'd like you to start. What about your current life, your current work moves your heart? Where are you bought in at a heart level? And how are you, what motivates you at that level?
I was thinking about this, and it really is when I see people who have maybe traditionally been left behind, finding their voice, finding their passion, what they're good at, and then being able to really, make the changes in their life to follow their dreams, whether it's a child, a youth, or an adult. That really moves my heart when I see that people are supported, when they can, again, have their voice be heard in the community, and when they can start to follow their own dreams and understand their own value and the talents that they bring to this world.
What I hear in that, and correct me if I'm wrong, what I hear in that is really a proactive effort toward giving people dignity, acknowledging their dignity. Does that resonate?
Yes, I think people too often, unfortunately, have been told that um, they don't matter. Their voice doesn't matter. They've never had maybe a trusted person that they can share their dreams with.
Yeah.
And so, you'll hear more about what I get to work on. I'm not supposed to reveal it yet,
Not
but
yet.
I get to work with some amazing people who are helping children, youth, and families live out their dreams.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Vanessa, go for it.
Yeah, so I think that similar to Amber, I really come alive when I see people being heard. And what I love is being a problem solver. And I, want to see a challenge. If I see a challenge, I want to, how can I fix this? And I'll reveal a little bit of how I'm a lawyer. And I went into law because I wanted to solve problems. But a lot of the challenges that lawyers and especially litigators face are when problems have gone so wrong that you're now battling it in court. And that is, far, far beyond when it could have been resolved through conversation or through engagement.
Yeah.
And what I am fired up about now about my position is that I get to be involved in social change and in choosing how to identify the biggest problems that we can try to work on together.
Yeah. Policy, global understanding of the community, and the interactions in the Justice Department and how all that goes on. So, tell us, both of you, starting with Amber, what do you do? What's your title? Where do you work? Yeah.
Well, I am the director of a community initiative based out of the Northeast Community Center in the northeast part of Spokane, Washington, and it's called The Zone. And we're a partnership of schools, organizations, and Northeast residents and families.
Mm-hmm.
And together we generate hope and opportunity through collective actions. We work together to generate strategies and work 2-generationally, cradle to career. That's our vision, to ensure every child, youth, adult can achieve their dreams and reach their full potential.
Yeah. Would you express what you guys do as kind of a wraparound service, kind of hitting the different points where they intersect with the community?
Well, there's a lot of amazing people, and I see some of them listening tonight, which is awesome, who are doing the work in the trenches, in the schools, in social service agencies, in healthcare agencies, but we don't all work together. And so the Zone acts as kind of a backbone for collaboration and partnership and bringing resources and solutions. Vanessa and I are very solution oriented, but really listening to residents and families and students about the barriers that they face.
Yeah.
And some of those are systems, some of those are policies or programs or procedures, the way things are done. Well, sometimes we need to change the way things are done to be centered on the person and the whole family. So that's what we get to work on. We listen, we problem solve, we access new resources, or we renew or redo what we're doing to get to better outcomes. So I get to work with amazing organizations, over 70 organizations, hundreds of residents. And we have committees, we have initiatives, after school programs that our partners are running. And we're just there to support, bring people together, track the data, and show the collective impact.
That's cool.
It is so cool.
When you first told me about that, I thought it's really
a heck of a lot of work, but it is very, very amazing. And I've met some incredible people and gotten to know all about kind of our school system, which was a new area for me.
Different lens on what was going on. Vanessa, how about you? What do you do? What's your title?
So I am the United States Attorney for the Eastern District of Washington, and I am the first woman to serve in this role. Yes, it's very cool. It is a presidentially nominated and Senate confirmed position that is set for a term of 4 years. So it is the Chief Law Enforcement Officer for the Eastern District of Washington. There are 93 United States attorneys for different districts throughout the country. And for the Eastern District, I am the key person who brings these federal prosecutions for every federal criminal case in the Eastern District of Washington. And then we also handle civil matters within the Eastern District as well, representing the United States and its federal agencies.
Gotcha,
So in terms of the passion areas that I have, it's an amazing blend of being able to use the law to try to create community safety, and as partnering with my amazing team of prosecutors, we get to identify with our law enforcement partners, what are the key areas that we need to focus our efforts on to try to really respond to the needs of the community and bring the most impactful, important cases to keep our communities safe and make them stronger.
Yeah. Do you have, Amber, I'm going to ask this of you in just a second here, but Vanessa, what does your day-to-day look like in the sense that treat me as very ignorant? And are you individually representing in cases, or are you coordinating your staff to represent in cases?
So it's largely me coordinating my team of assistant United States attorneys to bring those cases.
Yeah.
The role of a United States attorney is kind of multiple parts. It's first, I manage an office of, right now we have about 28 assistant United States attorneys and a staff of over 60 federal employees, and additionally more with contractors. So I manage that office, and we select and work with our federal law enforcement partners to try to bring the most important cases that we can bring federally within the district. But I also reach out to our federal partners and community partners to try to identify, are we hearing what the community needs, and really trying to listen and identify what are we hearing about the opioid crisis throughout the district? What are the challenges that we're hearing about fraud and elder abuse, and how can we bring the right cases to highlight those problems and to really deter that type of conduct in the future?
Yeah. So is part of the process some selection of which cases get heard, which cases get represented?
Absolutely. Yes. So that's really a key part of the role, is we evaluate cases to make sure that there's appropriate jurisdiction, and we could prove that case in court.
Yeah.
And we also look at them for, we all are in a world of limited resources. So how can we bring the cases that are the most impactful for what our community needs now are?
Yeah. Thank you. That was an education for me. I knew just bits and pieces because I do some reading ahead of time, but some of the coordination, so the selection, I didn't quite grasp. So I appreciate that. Amber, what does your day-to-day look like?
Wow, it's an interesting mix. So this zone initiative is kind of it's a startup. We're in our probably 7th year since the initiative was initially envisioned by others. I'm the second director of the zone. And so for instance, today I was working with partners to get them data and information so they could apply for grants to support students in after school and summer programs, because there's a lot of American Rescue Plan dollars coming from the state down to community-based organizations, obviously to cities and counties. So there's a lot going on right now. I've been doing a lot of coordinating of partners of who's going to apply for these dollars and where could they be best spent, to enhance the different activities on the ground already in the community. So working with partners on grants, getting data and information to partners, writing a report today about how we've been doing with a particular project, which is bringing food to families with kids who have behavioral health needs.
Yeah.
So helping the whole family with food security as kind of a social determinant of health.
Yeah.
So trying to make sure the family is stable in that area and able to access healthy food. So our community really set priorities. So what I get to do is help the community meet those priorities. So one of the priorities in the Northeast area was more protein in fruits and vegetables, accessible every day to kids and families. And so we have a program where we're using community health workers to deliver those food. And so I had to write a report about how we've been doing. And obviously it's been a challenge the last year and a half.
No kidding.
To truly serve families. So I get to do a lot of, unfortunately, I love getting out and meeting with people and getting out in the community. Since I've developed this initiative, I get to do a lot of the grant writing and the reporting and the budgeting. But I try and enjoy every piece of it.
Yeah.
And I try and sprinkle in some meetings. Like we met today with a partner who does college and career support work for families to really try and access scholarships and get into college in some of these neighborhoods in Northeast Spokane. And we want to partner with them to do more to reach families. So we're constantly developing new partnerships, kind of assessing how we're doing, and then improving what we're doing.
Yeah. There's adaptation. It sounds like constant or at least periodic adaptation.
Well, and it's been constant adaptation the last year and a half. And so I know we're going to talk about leadership challenges. Boy, I think there's a lot of people that are listening in tonight that can relate to how challenging it's been, especially. To interact in communities that have already experienced a lot of trauma, and then trying to keep supporting those communities through this tough time.
Yeah. Yeah. Doubles up on it.
So I have a small team, and I have other backbone staff I work with. We have about 5 team members, and I'm part of a larger staff at the Northeast Community Center. So I have wonderful people. I've been able to have some great people join our team in the last couple of years. And then, like I said, I have 70 different organizations that are all on the ground doing amazing work. And so just continually building relationships and communicating. We sent out our e-newsletter today, so everybody can stay in touch with what's going on.
I got to get on that newsletter. I thought of it actually prior to this.
You can go to thezonespokane.org.
Yes, thank you.
Zonespokane.org and sign up to get our e-newsletter.
Yes.
And I can toot Amber's horn. Oh, sure. Let me just say, I mean, Amber is just amazing at adapting. I'm the one who's a little bit more like stubborn. I'm like, how do I make this work? And I'm we're both workhorses where we're like, we're going to get this done. But I love seeing how Amber's mind is always working of like, okay, well, but what if I collaborated in this way, or this grant, we could approach it from this direction. And it's really amazing to see how, especially when you're responding to community needs that are constantly changing the way they have been for the last 2 years. It's been amazing seeing the way that she has been able to adapt.
Yes. And I just I'm going to go way back, Amber, because we're going to do this in a second. Do you remember Hamida Bosmajian? Seattle University.
Yes.
You and I
that when we checked out the honors program?
That's right.
Together?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I just remember, and this is apropos, I remember how you paved the way for that. And you thought, hey, we're going to connect with this person, Hamida. We're going to connect with so-and-so and so-and-so, get some more information about this program. And I was the first person in my family, my line, to go to 4-year college. It was all new to me. And yet I was following you. And you were doing it then, what you're doing now.
And you always did the driving, though, Josh. I always had to bum a ride off of you. So thank you.
Indeed. Going way back, yeah. Let's all three of us go back, and particularly for the two of you, of course, I wanna hear about some, when you were much younger, some pivotal moments that helped shape who you are today. And let's start with Vanessa.
Thank you, Joshua. So Amber and I have actually been talking about this and kind of thinking about like, where did we get this like strong sense of, well, like we must do justice. And I think that certainly is from our parents who are very engaged in their faith communities and really instilled in us, that living our faith was living a life of doing justice. And I have this recollection from second grade, I think, which should have given, flashing lights that I was an abnormal child. But I drew pictures of, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I had two because you should always have options.
Yeah.
And one was me as a professional tennis player, wearing,
Excellent.
it was like the 80s. So like Andre Agassi, awesome clothes, like hot pink outfit. And then my other one was as a judge saying, I want justice.
Oh
And
my goodness. I'm
this
not surprised, but oh my goodness.
was just, deeply instilled of like, of course, what we need to do with all of our choices is to work for justice. And my mom was very involved in parish work and coordinated a Thanksgiving dinner every year. And it was a monumental undertaking. She would coordinate buses that were coming from homeless shelters in Spokane. And it was hundreds of people, and Amber and I were always involved as servers. We would serve milk and coffee and eat dinner with the guests, and it was truly this experience where we were able to see everyone is entitled to respect. Everyone has, the shared humanity, and we could hear stories from people of really difficult lives that we, we're very blessed. We have, warm roof over our heads, parents who love us, and we could hear the stories of how they were victims of crime, didn't have the safety net that we had. And I think that really gave us the base belief that our job is to make the world a better place so that everyone can have the benefits that we have.
How did you two, and then I want to hear from Amber, how did you two, this is a segue. This is not a segue. This is an aside. I got up really early this morning, so bear with me. How did you two go from the on the ground experience of serving to the big picture? Because both of you are absolutely big picture thinkers. You're systems thinkers, you're policy thinkers, you're community-wide thinkers. And Amber, I think I want you to go first on this one, and you can wind in those pivotal moments when you were younger, but then take us to where, from that place to the big thinking. If you can do that, that's a lot I just threw at you.
No, I think that, well, I can kind of jump off. Our growing up in Hilliard was fairly small world.
Yeah.
We lived in a small world. We didn't leave the neighborhood that often. The occasional trip, I don't know, to the Magic Lantern Theater for a free movie in the summer. We didn't have a lot of money, but we had a home. We had parents that were very engaged in our life. And that's probably what, set us on the trajectory to be of service to others. But I really do think, the Catholic education, the Jesuit education at Prep, Josh, you joined us at Prep. I do think the critical thinking skills that we gained, and then by going off to Georgetown University and building a more world view of kind of where we came from and where the rest of the world, was and our place in it. I just think, we kept moving from a smaller to a larger fishbowl, and this idea of, at each step of the way, I know when I moved from a small school in Hilliard to Gonzaga Prep, that was probably the biggest
leap
in my life, because I really didn't understand income inequality. I didn't understand really, a lot of other experiences. And then you jump from Spokane to Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
And it's been a journey of just listening and learning. And I really do think that the Ignatian and Jesuit thinking around what probably it's a lot of solutions thinking. What's going on? How can we change this? Is this just? Is this need to be adjusted? So, I don't know. That's, my parents were, Vanessa said it perfectly. Like, they were rock solid around creating this sense of duty and service and justice
Yeah.
for all. And then we kind of took that and built upon that with all these wonderful teachers and philosophies, right, of that we gained in our education. That's from my perspective, I think.
It's really interesting that we keep touching on justice. I've done I did a fair amount of research and listening to some podcasts and reading some books recently that, as another brief aside, but I think again it's very germane to what we're talking about, that looks at the New Testament, the Judeo-Christian text, and the New Testament portion of that, where righteousness is referred to, and a more accurate translation of that is justice, and particularly social justice. So not so much the adherence to certain standards as it is the reparation, the repair, the reconciliation, the bringing about of goodness for those who've been disenfranchised. And I think that not necessarily having the all of that more nuanced translation understanding, your parents nailed it. They really got the justice portion of that, from our shared Christian faith. So I think that's just fascinating that for both of you that comes up, and you're in different places and in different work areas, same community. Thank goodness. I'm glad you're here doing the work you're doing. But that justice piece that is coming up again and again, and Vanessa, for you very formally, and Amber, for you almost by implication, in the work that you're doing. Both of you, tell me about college.
Do you want to go first, Amber, or me? Actually, my college one maybe segues nicely from the last comments, because I think that's where, in addition to prep and having Amber, lead the way and following her to Georgetown and kind of having my eyes open to a bigger world in Washington, D.C. In college, I was really involved in the student anti-sweatshop movement and was very passionate around labor rights and advocacy for the workers who are making apparel that had Georgetown logos, and also working with other colleges as well, that we were able to use the power that we had as students and consumers to ensure that workers making our clothes with our insignias on them would be able to receive wages that were living wages in their countries and had stronger working conditions. And so having that kind of global perspective from my location at the university, and having the insight from professors as well as community organizing NGOs that we were working with as well, was a huge part of my opening my eyes to how I could be an agent of change in the world, and really gave me this sense of, I have this privilege that I can use my voice to try to empower others to advocate for working conditions and better wages. And I want to use that to do good in the world.
Yeah. Here I am experiencing these affirmations and privileges, and I am tied in to someone 10,000 miles away, who has a very different life, and they are tied to me. Their economy is tied to me. Their living conditions are tied to me. That's, yeah. I remember that. Amber. College.
Well, we both got really involved in, I'm laughing because I got very involved in I guess more peace and justice, world peace and justice issues. I founded a student action group on campus that called attention to, for instance, landmines as an issue that was
Huh?
impacting communities all over the world.
Yeah.
So a history of legacy landmines and really getting active around the U.S. taking a stand and working with other countries to ban landmines. And so I'm laughing a little bit because we put bubble wrap, and we did this action where we made students walk across campus on this bubble wrap, and we said for
Mhm.
every time you
Pop.
we said for every minute there's someone that is maimed or
Yeah.
hurt or dies by a landmine, especially
Yeah.
in Southeast Asia. So
Yeah.
I just really got very active in a lot of at that time there was sanctions on Iraq, and this
Mhm.
is before we went to war with Iraq a second time.
Mhm.
And there was a lot of questions about the humanitarianism of that.
Yeah.
Were we really hurting, a government, or were we hurting people on the ground? So,
Civilians. Yep.
Georgetown really helped. It really encouraged students to explore these difficult ethical and political dilemmas around
Yeah.
how do you impact, humanitarian needs around the world. And so I got really involved. I started this group, and we did all sorts of we brought leaders and experts to campus to speak on these topics, landmine victims and survivors.
Mhm.
So that got me really active, and after I graduated I actually took a job as a student activist kind of
Mhm.
coordinator across the country, helping other college students with how to create a press release, how to get your message out, how to bring some folks to campus, how to work to have your voices heard. So
Yeah.
again, the voice is heard conversation. But that was a lot of learning and growing and kind of learning how to be a community organizer from a campus perspective.
Mhm.
So maybe that did kind of give me some skills once I got involved in my own neighborhood. And how do you navigate the bureaucracy to get what you want to see happen and see the changes you want to see in your community? So
Yeah.
it was great to see. I remember when Vanessa got on the cover of her photo got on the cover with the
Mhm.
sweatshop movement on the Gonzaga newspaper, or sorry,
Mhm.
Gonzaga,
Yeah.
Georgetown newspaper,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
other GU.
Right.
Anyway, and I was like, oh, Vanessa got on the cover of the newspaper. Oh, and I'm a senior and she's a freshman. What?
So,
Which has happened a couple of times.
Yes. Yes.
Amber paves the way, and I'm like, oh, maybe I can do things. But Amber was,
She does it
I
bigger
mean,
and better.
or I just am better at publicity. I don't know. But I think that Amber was really so strategic in how she is fearless in trying to take on new things. Where I've been very fortunate to be able to follow her in many aspects. Where it's like, okay, well, she's at Georgetown. Okay, it's not so scary. I can do that.
Yeah.
And I was able to follow her and kind of find my crew of people. And I think that really did help us both find our voices, where we found kind of our advocacy communities, and that helped me identify, well, how do I organize? Who's my target audience for this type of event, and who can I talk to try to maybe convince them that this is an important issue and how it affects their lives. And then how do you work the institutional angle of starting a committee with the university and
Navigating
working
those
with
things.
professors and administration around how do we actually change this, instead of just complaining about a problem. Okay,
Right.
let's do it then. So I'm
Actually
always
living
very
it.
like,
Yeah.
let's do it.
Yeah. One of the questions that I always ask at this point, and I'm super interested, particularly because I know you both pretty well, who were your mentors during these transitional times from high school to college, college to career, or the beginnings of career? Were there some persisting mentors? Were there some mentors for a time who really helped you mature and take on new things and have new awareness. Who would you say? Amber, you go first.
Oh, wow. One person that really stands out, who unfortunately has passed away, but was a wonderful mentor, was Dr. Terry K. Beer at
Yeah.
Josh and I had honors English with her.
Huh?
Me too.
She was an amazing teacher at Gonzaga Prep. And what I loved about her was I felt like she was able to connect reading the great novels with the political times of the
Mhm.
era, or even the current concerns, of humanity, right?
Yeah.
So that kind of got me in. She was so supportive and so, oh gosh, you've got to study English in college, and just so supportive.
Yeah.
She always said, I'm saving my podium for you, Amber. But I never
Yes.
became an English teacher. So I might have disappointed
But you
her
were
in
a
that
damn good writer, by the way.
way. She helped me develop some amazing writing skills, along with my mother, who actually has an English degree as well.
Yep.
So, but I want to thank, she left a living legacy for many at Gonzaga Prep.
Agreed.
And then when I got to Georgetown, I had an amazing professor who really helped me start to study the history and understand social movements from a sociological perspective. I ended up becoming a sociology and English double major,
Mm-hmm.
with a minor in peace and justice studies. I had to throw that in because that was important to me as well. But he really got me interested in understanding how social movements, and especially in the United States, have created social change and driven change in policies, in community dynamics, in politics.
Yep.
And that's probably why I started to get a little bit more involved in political advocacy work coming out of college. So
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Sam Murillo, I think Vanessa remembers him as well, because she also took sociology, and he was just an amazing professor, wrote several amazing books about the civil rights movement and the women's movement, and how those social movements have really moved us. And then, of course, now we've experienced in the last 20 years more movements, LGBTQ movements,
Yep.
Movements for racial equity. I mean, it continues,
Me
right?
too.
It continues.
Yep. Yeah, as in the Me Too movement, not just Me Too. Clarify that.
And then I've had several
Oh,
mentors
go ahead.
since then, but I don't know how far you want me to go. But I also wanted to mention Jerry Paulette, who is the director of a Hanford watchdog group that I worked for, Heart of America Northwest, and he's now a state legislator. So we used to work together. I was the field director working on educating community members and getting community members active in what we wanted to see in the cleanup of Hanford, which is the largest nuclear cleanup outside of Chernobyl.
Yep.
And right in our own backyard. Vanessa, you're right down there in the Tri-Cities right now. There's a lot going on there. There's a lot to be done to protect our environment and human health. Anyway, he taught me just amazing community organizing, understanding the political world, how to really move issues forward, from a community perspective, from a government perspective. And so it's interesting that he is now a state representative from the Seattle area, and I was on the Spokane City Council. So we both continued to serve in different ways.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to talk about that in just a second. So let's go from after college, with the support of these mentors, into what were your first? Amber, you talked briefly about some of the things you did right after college. What would you consider, both of you, your first real job, your first real career job? What was that? Vanessa, go for it.
So my first job after undergrad is actually probably the most important in deciding what did I want to do when I grew up. I was a Jesuit volunteer, which was
Yeah.
a year-long year of service in Seattle, and I lived in a community with 8 people in an old convent, and we all had different service jobs, and we also had community nights and time where we shared about the challenges and the work of the community that we were doing. My job in particular was coordinating a Know Your Rights hotline for low-income parents, where I would help people navigate the public benefits system in Washington state. And then I also had a community organizing aspect to the position, where I would try to encourage mostly moms, but low-income parents, to try to support each other in navigating a system that was often very confusing and full
Complex.
of no's. Yeah, lots of like, oh, well, they told me I wasn't eligible, so I guess I don't get a bus pass this month. And I'm like, well, but are you eligible? And I was able to kind of help coach people through that process. And I really loved both aspects of that, the community organizing component and the legal component, because rules make sense to me. I've always been able to navigate a system, and I loved the aspect of hopefully I'm empowering people to be able to advocate for themselves. So that was really my kind of defining moment of like, I want to be a lawyer. This is actually a gift that I have, because I know how to navigate the system, and I didn't realize how difficult it could be for others. And that is really the lawyer's job, to help people understand rules and make them work for the community that they're serving. So that was a huge job for me, that then after working for a couple more years, I went into law school, and still think of as my first legal job, even though it was before I actually was a lawyer.
But it was, yeah, absolutely. And that's boots on the ground. Here you are, because when we're at college, of course I was at Gonzaga, we're immersed in the philosophy, in the awareness, gaining understanding. And when we do volunteer and when we have the jobs during college, we're interacting with people at college. We are potentially interacting with the community around us, which I think each of us experienced. And then it's more broadly. Amber, you went broad. Vanessa, you went broad. But both of you then came to this place where you're interacting with the individuals who are being impacted by the systems. Sorry. And so, yeah, Vanessa, that's so formative. Obviously set the trajectory for you, and you found some passion there. Amber, how about you? What was your first legit career? I'm going for, what was your first job? And I think you might have touched on it, but if you would describe more fully that'd be great.
So yeah, I think it was probably being the field organizer and then field director for the Hanford Watchdog group.
Okay.
So we were an advocacy organization. I built relationships with people all over Washington State, even Oregon, because obviously the Hanford nuclear reservation, the Columbia River flows right between Washington and Oregon. So it has impacts, it's multi-state impacts. And it was really an interesting opportunity working regionally. I would come to the Tri-Cities, I would go to Spokane, I would go to Portland, Hood River. We'd have community meetings so I needed to learn how to activate people. How do you get people to show up and speak up? How do you get people to care that this is happening in their backyard and that they have a say in how, frankly, billions of U.S. dollars are being spent to try and keep that nuclear material from getting into the groundwater and into the Columbia River, or entering the air. So it's probably the most challenging environmental issue to try and explain in plain language. So I learned a lot about how do you communicate complex, scientific, sometimes processes, or in everyday language, and I'm still using that today in the
Yeah.
work in the zone. We
Yeah.
try and make sure everything that we communicate with families and residents is a high school level
Mm-hmm.
of the English language, or
Mm-hmm.
it's able to be translated to other languages. So you have to be able to break it down for people.
Yeah.
Why should you care
Yeah.
if this is happening in the Tri-Cities? How does it impact you? How does it impact our children in the future? And so it was a really formative experience for me to be able to understand, how do you do community organizing around very complex topics.
Very complex. I remember reading The Sum of All Fears by John Clancy, and he spent, it was like 18 pages on the ignition of the nuclear bomb that went off. It was a horrifying story in a lot of ways, but it's very interesting. But I remember that. I remember thinking, ooh, this is complex. So I have some respect for what you're talking about. And it comes down to relevance, right? Helping people understand the relevance for the importance of what you're doing, why they should buy in, why they should be involved. And both of you are currently in roles and have been in roles where you are expressing and navigating and bringing awareness of the relevance of what you're doing to lots of different organizations, lots of stakeholders, right? Everybody's got to buy in for what you're doing. What are some challenges? And here we're going to get right down to brass tacks. What are some challenges you've faced as women from early on in positions of influence and going forward? You can touch on anywhere in the last however many years we've been doing the work we've been doing. But specifically, I want to hear from you on challenges you faced as women in industries where there are a lot of men in positions of influence, and you're interacting with them. And I know that you have both had some challenges. You've also had a lot of positive experiences. So we could touch on that too and how those worked. I'll just throw it your way. What were some challenges that you faced as women?
You want to go, Vanessa?
Sure, I can start off. I think that a big challenge that I have as a woman in the legal field and now in law enforcement is that there's just really not very many women leaders in the field. So when you are one of the first, you have, uh, you know, there's not a lot of models of people who look like you and maybe have talk like you to be able to follow that role. And I mean, that is a big challenge. I think that there's also I've faced, and I know a lot of women face, the perception that you're not experienced enough to be in a leadership role or to handle tough situations, or that, if I appear, kind and friendly, that might be a weakness.
Uh-huh.
And I think that I've tried to, deal with those by really having the facts ready about what my qualifications are, what my experience is, and how that is relevant to the role. And in terms of kind of being friendly or kind, I've just decided I'm going to be me. And I think as if I can show up authentically as somebody who delivers results and is going to be a listener, I hope that will overall win the day in the end, that I am somebody that they want to have on their team and they know I'm going to deliver for them. But those are big challenges. And some of those are external. I think that folks, there can be that perception. And some of it is also internal, where I don't know how people are perceiving me. And that's an extra challenge that women face in trying to navigate the unknown.
Vanessa, you're in a challenging industry, if you will. You're in a challenging milieu. And to be yourself, you just said, hey, I decided I'm going to be myself. I'm going to bring results. I'm going to listen, but I'm going to be myself. How did you get to the point where you could be yourself in those situations, in the courtroom, navigating policy, navigating strategic initiatives, navigating the Fed? How did you get there? And the reason why I ask that is We have listeners who will write me and say, I'm not sure who I am now. I'm in a position of influence. I'm a woman. I'm trying to figure this out. Don't know how do I be who I am with these pressures? How did you figure that out?
So I think part of it is, I think you need to have your own evidence of like, okay, I may feel, I mean, I've heard, I don't really like the word imposter syndrome around, because I don't like the word syndrome and I don't like imposter either, but I understand that concept very well because I am a perfectionist and I expect that I should be 100% good at everything the second I start doing it. And I think that that's preposterous. And so I have done a lot of work in thinking about, okay, do you know anyone who actually is perfect at this? And the answer, of course, no. People are always learning and always facing new challenges. And I think that I try to keep a little evidence list of like, okay, well, I know I can do this. I know that I have skills in this area. And to reflect back on to your like, okay, I'm feeling like maybe I don't know what I'm doing here, but I know I can do all these things. And I think that that is applicable to this situation as well. And I'm willing to learn. And I'm willing to bring myself to this situation. And I think that also people are pretty smart at sniffing out if you're authentic or if you're faking it. And I think that if I can show up and I'm honest about what I do know and what I can bring and honest about where I'm learning, then that brings an authenticity. I hopefully can build real relationships with people, which is what I think that my role is truly about. It's about building trust in law enforcement and in government and in the community that I'm here to do the best that I can. And if I'm showing up pretending like I know all the answers, then I'm already not in a position to gain that trust and to build those relationships.
Yeah, that's insightful. Thank you. Thanks for responding to my volley there. Amber, let's go back to you.
So one of the things I struggled with when I was elected to Spokane City Council back in 2009. So I served from 2010 through 2017, and then I took this position working to develop the zone in the Northeast community. The thing I faced was like, how can I interact with, when I was elected, I was one of 2 women out of 7. And the dynamics were very male dominated. Even 2 or 3 years, there was maybe 3 women on the city council. And so that was good. That was progress. By the time I left, there was 4. And then now there was 5. So, hey, we've made some great progress.
There is progress.
But the dynamic, though, of just sometimes political discourse is interrupting, getting your digs in, getting your word in. And I would be at these council committee meetings and council study sessions, and I was like kind of raising my hand to be recognized, thinking that's the respectful thing to do, right? Let's all respect each other and make sure all voices are heard. But it wasn't always recognized. And then I realized I'm going to have to just start interrupting. And I would start interrupting to get myself heard. But I felt like this is not me. And to Vanessa's point, I really struggled. I'm like, I need to be heard in this conversation, but nobody is honoring hearing all voices. So I guess I'm just going to have to interrupt like everybody else. So I really have struggled with almost, women trying to enter the conversation, do you have to act like a man, in quotes? I'm just saying generically, traditional masculine kind of traits of beating your
aggression,
chest, hey, I'm here and I've got a great idea. How can you interrupt that? Or how can you be yourself when you're trying to go up against that? And so I really struggled for probably the first 2 to 3 years to finally, I think it's just over time and experience, and we had more women and we had some more dynamics. I just kept trying to change the dynamic. it's about listening, not just speaking. And Vanessa knows I like to talk. I do like to talk. So maybe I
No.
was born for politics. I don't know. But you have to listen
Yeah.
to be able to truly hear the other perspective and then be able to respond. But it's almost like our culture in the United States on steroids when you're in the political environment of people not really listening and just kind of responding,
Well said.
having
Yeah.
a response even before the person's finished their thought. And
Yeah.
I'm guilty of this. I'm guilty of engaging in that type of communication, but I'm trying, that I
Yeah.
really try to tell myself, I don't have to be like that to be heard as a woman in the room.
Interesting.
But it was really hard to be heard.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like, God, I got to stand up for the marginalized communities in my neighborhoods that I represent. And I'm here
Yeah.
to do that. So
Yeah.
I kind of had to get pushy. And I know I'm using a word I'm not supposed to, whatever. I'm just saying I don't like to interrupt.
Right.
But it just took time. It took time, and it took a lot of conversations with people leading, the meetings and asking, can I lead the meeting? And eventually, I got to lead some of the meetings as I was a more senior member of the council. And
Yeah.
I tried to then lead the meetings in a way that others could see this is possible, not to be interrupting each other and calling people on that type of behavior, talking over one another.
Yep.
So that to me has been one of the biggest challenges I've seen that I've experienced, and I think other women experience once they get into a position of leadership on a board, in a corporation, in government. And I don't know if Vanessa's experienced that, but it was really hard for me because how do you live your values and respectful?
Yeah.
And yet if you don't speak up, guess what? The moment is gone. So it is a dynamic that I'm sure a lot of women experience every day. And I don't have all the answers, except I think you just have to continually pull people aside and say, next time, could we check in with everybody to make sure everybody has a chance to speak before we go on to the next topic? And I think it's just educating, reminding, and then showing from your own actions how you can be respectful, leading a meeting, inviting others to share their thoughts. This can happen in anything, a nonprofit,
Yeah.
a business,
Yeah.
any kind of group dynamics. But the group dynamics I find have been challenging.
Yeah.
But so now I just surround myself with a lot of women. No, I'm just no.
Well, I
There's
think
a-
something
I just-
that I would pitch in for in terms of now being in positions where we lead the meetings, we have the opportunity to set the agenda, bring
Yeah.
in other voices. And that's really, I mean, that's what gives me hope for building future leaders from all backgrounds. If we're really intentional about creating a space where it's safe for people to contribute, and other people are going to be, when you're a teacher, that there's some students who are ready to jump in with answers, every time. And then there's going to be other students who need a little time to think, want to make sure that they're right before they jump into the conversation. So you really need to call and give them the chance to prepare. So what I am trying to do now that I get to set the call on people in meetings is really incorporate all voices and have it be assigned that the meeting leader is alternating, or that everyone does have a chance to contribute to the meeting, because we're going to be stronger and smarter if we do hear from all the voices at the table.
Yeah. And fostering that. And one thing that I found from our guests on the show, is that creating safe spaces for everyone to weigh in is critical, and it's something that women can bring. And by and large, I'm just going there because both of you have, and I respect that. Women have a tendency to be able to nurture and collaborate and bring in all the voices and make a safe space for that, more than the prevailing aggressive male perspective. And that's not all men in influence. We know that, right? There's some phenomenal guys who are allies. But that tendency to bring everybody in to the conversation, it threatens the status quo. It threatens that aggressive perspective. It threatens the ownership. I've got this. It's my way, And that Brene Brown talks about that. That touches on your shame and your fear as a man, and all those different components. So, but to say, I'm really loving what you're saying, that you're both working to bring all the voices to bear, to hear the community, to hear the stakeholders in the courtroom, in the organization, whatever it might be. Everybody gets heard because Vanessa, as you touched on, you have the best decision-making power when everybody's weighing in, and people are validated into relevant to everybody in there. We could probably talk for 10 more hours without even taking a break, but I want to note we're at an hour. And so I want to make sure to ask this final question. What are you both hopeful about with regard to women in influence? And Vanessa, you can start.
And so I think that a big part of what I am hopeful for is that opportunity to create safe spaces. That's an area of passion for mine. And we've chatted, Joshua, about my love of Brene Brown and her Dare to Lead podcast, and how, I think that it's really important, especially, this is sort of my hat as a manager of an office, to build spaces that are safe for everyone, where we give, very positive feedback. And that, by positive feedback, I mean, feedback that's critical about how you can be a better lawyer, employee, and also what you're doing great and what you can improve. And so creating everyone to feel safe, to ask questions, to point out problems, to give me feedback as a leader is really what I think makes that organization healthy and strong, and will allow me to, encourage others to step into roles where, maybe they didn't see themselves as, somebody who could before, because I had never seen somebody that looked like me in the role that I'm in. And I'm now seeing, and talking with, law students. I was at an event last week who I had two young women come up and say, "Oh, I want to be a prosecutor. How does this path start?" So very hopeful for leadership. And I think some of that is creating, just the pathways of seeing someone who looks like you in a position that you've never seen before, and then creating a space where you can really have conversations about how can I improve, how can I grow, and giving people the tools to do that.
Yeah. Love it. Amber.
Well, something we didn't have time to talk about fully is really, other challenges that all women face is that we're working in a system, we're living in a system in the United States that really is not female centered. It's not women centered. We don't have access to not all women have access to affordable childcare, to paid sick leave. These are things that keep women from achieving equal pay, opportunities, reaching their full potential as professionals and as mothers. And so to me, what brings me hope is that I'm seeing national conversations in our country about changing our systems to make it more equitable for women to be able to work, achieve their dreams, reach their financial potential, and contribute fully to their community, their talents and their skills. So things like paid sick leave, and I'm not making specific policy things like this has to be this way, but these are the conversations that we have to have. Women we're never going to close the gap, the gender pay gap, unless women have access to the wraparound supports, elder care, child care. And if they themselves are choosing to care for their children or their family members, that is worth something in our economy. And currently,
essential.
we don't value the care economy. So what gives me hope is that we're having conversations as a nation that, maybe we need to make these investments to make sure all people have access to opportunity, which is the American dream.
Yeah.
If it's not accessible and it's not affordable, then it's not truly an opportunity for all in the United States, so that's what I'm hopeful about. I'm hopeful that we can take those conversations and figure out what are the solutions to make it a better place for women to reach their full potential and to fully utilize their talents in our country.
You two inspire me. I'm hopeful because you're doing what you're doing. This has been a treat, both for the mission of what we're doing here and for our audience members, and because the three of us don't ever have enough time to catch up. So this has been great for that too. Yeah. And
we didn't even get a chance to talk about, being in jazz band in high school together.
Yes, for prom.
Where, of course, I was second chair saxophone to Vanessa's first chair. Again,
I wasn't even in that section, so I have no perspective at all.
Anyway, we love music. We had great fun, and look at us now doing all doing some great work back in Spokane. So thanks,
singing
Josh.
different songs,
you.
singing different songs, but we're still singing.
Yeah. No, definitely. And I think that also just to throw in music and creativity and having things in life that make you happy and joyful is also critical to healthy leadership. Although Amber and I are like writing grants and doing things crazy late at night, we also, need to fill our cups with things that truly make us happy, which is seeing friends like you, Joshua, and having those time for family and fun and laughter. So it's not all work. It's also, a world of joy that we need to try to create as well.
Well said, Vanessa. Yeah, and obviously we normally talk about self-care, so you hit the nail on the head.
We snuck in a little bit of self-care at the end.
There it goes. A little bit.
Maybe you'll see the Waldref sisters going for a long run on the Centennial Trail, because that's what we like to do to decompress and keep our mental health well and enjoy the beautiful nature and community that we live in.
It's amazing. Yeah. Well, we'll be talking real soon. Thank you so much for your time tonight. And both of you get some sleep. I know you've got big days and lots of things going on. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Joshua. Thanks, Amber.
Bye, Vanessa.
Bye-bye.